Now, today's subject is one that's very close to my heart. Imagine this. You think someone is lying. Now, every time they hesitate, you notice it. Every inconsistency stands out. Every nervous moment confirms your suspicion. But here's the question. What if you stopped noticing everything that suggested they were telling the truth? That's confirmation bias. And it's one of the biggest mistakes investigators, managers, parents, and even experienced professionals can make. Hi, I'm Steve Van Aperen, and today we're looking at confirmation bias, a psychological trap that can affect every one of us. But before we start, as is normal, no single behaviour proves deception on its own. We always need to look for patterns across multiple behaviours and the surrounding context and evidence. All right, let's get into it. Confirmation bias is surprisingly simple. Once we form a belief, our brain naturally starts looking for evidence that supports it. I remember being at one particular crime scene. I created or formed my hypothesis. Then I looked for evidence to support that hypothesis. Now, that's confirmation bias to the nth degree. At the same time, it often ignores evidence that challenges it. Imagine you're convinced an employee stole money. Now, every forgotten detail, every nervous laugh, every inconsistency seems to support your theory. But what about the evidence that points somewhere else? Did you notice that too? Or did your brain quietly dismiss it? That's the danger. Confirmation bias doesn't just affect inexperienced people. It affects experts, police investigators, doctors, lawyers, judges, business leaders, and every one of us is vulnerable. The best investigators I've worked with all had one habit in common. They deliberately challenged their own assumptions. Instead of asking, how can I prove I'm right? They asked, what evidence proves I'm wrong? That's a completely different mindset, and it's one that leads to better decisions. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine two witnesses give slightly different versions of an event. If you've already decided one is lying, you'll interpret every difference as deception. But what if memory, rather than dishonesty, explains those differences? Suddenly your interpretation changes. That's why good investigators don't begin with conclusions, they begin with questions. And they keep asking those questions until the evidence points in one particular direction or another. Not because we wanted it to, but because we earned it. So let's recap. Watch out for forming conclusions too early, only noticing evidence that supports your belief, ignoring contradictory information, and becoming emotionally attached to your first theory. Because the biggest obstacle to finding the truth is sometimes our own mind. Now, I've done many interviews over the years, and I've noticed that, and we're all guilty, as I just mentioned, of a particular bias, whether it be conscious or unconscious. I'm going to talk about that in future videos. But just be aware if you may be doing that. Now, if you found this useful, subscribe below. Go visit my YouTube channel, which is more long form, because once you understand how your own thinking can mislead you, you start hearing the truth very differently. I'm Steve Van Aperen.